my sound is okay?
Our guest today is an executive business strategist and two-time TEDx speaker. Dr. Ingrid Pyka coaches robust lead generators and profitable systems together with effective time management. In her work with multi-billion-dollar corporations, small business teams, and startups, Dr. Pyka trains and implements powerful communication strategies as the foundation for her clients' success. Over the past 15-plus years, Dr. Pyka has produced tens of millions of dollars for her clients. Her professional articles have been broadcast by leading industry organizations, and she has published 3 award-winning books and self-help guides with more on the way. Dr. Pyka's contributions to the business community have been recognized with numerous prestigious awards, including being honored as one of Denver's top business consultants for the past 3 consecutive years. Please join Glenn Daniels and Dr. Ingrid Pyka for essential leadership skills.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Well, good morning, everybody, and don't even start it. But yes, it's good morning. Wherever we are, just pretend it's good morning, and welcome to Essential Leadership Skills, our discussion with TEDx speakers. Dr. Pyka, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely, Glenn. Thank you so much for having me. Total honor. It's mine.
Well, we're going to have a great conversation because I listened to your TEDx, and I do realize there was a glitch there, but you have to explain that after the glitch, post-glitch, and a lot of other things. But before we dive into that TEDx talk, let me ask you this one question. What is important, powerful, that maybe we need to know about either you, your TEDx, or your company? What's important? What's powerful? What's unique about it?
It's really such a powerful question in itself. And I have found through my experiences that, and this is what led up to the TEDx talk itself, that it really comes into, and if I may, I'd like to share 3 things. It's really,
sure.
It culminates together with value, choice, and belief. As we go through our lives, as we are establishing what makes us happy, what keeps us busy, what's something that we want to do, something we don't want to do, it comes down to those 3 powerful points. Excuse me. The first one being that value. Once we understand what is important to us, then at that point, we truly can understand the whys in our life and what is driving our force. That's the value in our lives. Then the ability for choice, that second factor, the choice, the ability for us to have the knowledge of, yes, we can prioritize. This is something we want. This is something maybe we don't want so much. It allows us to feel good about what we're moving forward into. And it also allows the opposite end of the spectrum, in which case we say, guilt-free, I'm letting go of something. And that way, it gives us more value in our own lives because we have that ability to choose. And the last thing is that belief form. Being able to truly believe of the choices that we made, because those are the values that are important to us at that point in time. That is what syncs it all together and provides us with an ongoing source of success.
Well, you make me think of a question there, kind of, because when you say belief, what you're saying kind of is, and I'm asking this from your business perspective, you have clients that maybe you don't fully believe in. Do you cut them off? Do you go ahead and accept and work with them, even though the belief is not really there in them or their product or the services? How do you handle that when it comes to that third and important one?
Yeah, well, it really is on perspective. I can't make that decision. I know where I drive my clients and where I want them to go, but I can't force them. You can take a horse to the water, right? But you can't make the horse drink.
Sure.
And that's the same perspective. So if I have a client that thinks they know where they want to go, if they're following the path that I can help and support them with, then we're on the same page. They may be in a different level of, let's say, their business decision. They may be in a different level of their abilities or their resources. Resource being time, money, people around them,
Sure.
support them. And it's my job as a consultant to meet them where they are. And that's not for me to decide. It's for them. Can they follow this? Can I support them to where they need to go, in my perspective, but where they want to go? And then finding that right resource so that they do see the success that they're setting out to do.
Have you ever had a client, or what would happen if you had a client who you didn't believe in the product or the service? And then would you still say, okay, that's not my job to make that decision? Even though I don't believe in you, I'll still work with you?
There's a fine line.
Yeah,
I agree. There's a fine line with that, Glenn. In fact, I can think of several instances. For example, I had a young lady come to me. I work with a lot of authors, and I had a young lady come to me that had a series of poems and drawings that she had done and that were very important to her, and I recognize that. Those were important works, productions, creativity. It was an outlet for her desires and her situations and her struggles. She wanted to share it with the world, right?
Right.
So as we sat down, and I saw that these really were about the level of a second or third grader, which still can provide value in certain circumstances, may not be at the level of what her anticipation is of people flocking to buy and invest into that publication.
Right.
So what we shifted then is recognizing what was important to her. And in her case, it was actually the story that was important to her and her journey through the struggles and through what she was dealing with in her own private life and her disabilities. As we furthered it on, we realized that it was the story she wanted to share, not necessarily the work she had done, and began creating a structured format. How can you share the story? And then these examples are just a piece of that, and people are going to be excited to meet you. So that was the structure. She was excited. She was enthusiastic about it. Yet back to your question is how do we bring someone to a level of, if I don't feel that they're there? It was my job then to relay to her, to make this work, you will need to invest your time, your energy, your focus. Is this something that you are capable of doing? And then she made that decision herself, realizing this is not for me. But what we did come up with is creating a platform for her to still be able to share the work she had done with the family, with her friends. And that then was something where here's a very inexpensive way to bring those images and your poetry and your words together so that you do have a type of a publication, a book that you can now share with those around you, and it becomes a legacy of who you are.
That's a powerful way to kind of take care of it, because you told her in a way by asking her questions, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
So
you led right into it, asking questions. Absolutely, Glenn.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to just change just a little bit and ask you about your journey to your TEDx talk. What was that like? So from the time you conceived it to the time you delivered it twice, what was that journey like? Tell us all about that. Because we've been getting a few more people who want to do TEDx speeches, and they're starting to tune in. So tell us about that so they can get a feel for what that was like.
Absolutely. I was actually very fortunate. I had been working with time management for a while and had been studying how does time work in our daily lives anyway? What is time? What is it all about? And when I was in that process, this opportunity actually came along that there was a TEDx up in Greeley that was looking for speakers. And when I did the application, it was actually through the application that formulated the beginnings of the talk itself. And during the development of the talk, I was continuing to gather the three questions and the responses to the three questions. And so it was kind of all coming together at the same time. By the time I got to that TEDx stage, maybe you wanted to chat about this at another question, that there are definitely some technical issues that can happen on any stage, even TED or TEDx.
Yes.
And so we did encounter that. Now with the second TEDx that I did, I still was able to access that same concept, yet it was a different audience. And this audience happened to be high schoolers and teachers. So it was an easy mold of establishing the value of time and the gift of time and the power of time to fit in along in alignment with those in that particular audience. So progress, it was evolving. It evolved from the very beginning all the way through.
Okay, so tell us about, even the first or the second time, how much did you practice to get ready for it? Yeah. I mean, how many times did you have to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to say it 1,000 times? What did you do to get ready?
Oh, I tell you, I was in my coach's office for the first boot camp, probably about 2 days before, going, I don't know my talk. I don't know it. I'm blanking out on all of it. And part of what had happened, and this is certainly a lesson to learn, I had spent the last several weeks writing and rewriting and creating and recreating. And so as I was going through these, it ended up happening and rewiring my brain. And so there was not one single thing I could attach to because I kept changing the talk, the talk. So lesson learned, have your talk ready. For anyone who's listening, have your talk ready. And at some point in time, don't worry about the being perfect. It will evolve and it'll come from your heart. The more it comes from your heart, the better impact it actually can be. For the second TEDx, I knew it. Again, I made some minor adjustments. And the funny thing on that one is I knew my intro. From 10,000 feet in the air, an eagle can stand over 3 square miles in one instant. But what happens when you put this magnificent creature down in a busy New York City intersection? I mean, I knew that, right? So I kept skipping over that introduction. And what ended up happening the night before, because I had practiced all the rest of it, I realized, I forgot the first conclusion of that intro. So I was up. So you go into such a habit of things and you forget. And that was certainly it. That was another learner for me.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's so because I enjoyed that story because it was easy to relate to. We'll get into the TEDx in a little bit, but it was easy to relate to just because I can see the confusion of me sometimes. Because I'm too close to it or too far from it and just can't see the power of that. It becomes very, like I said, we'll get in that story a little bit. In fact, it's time to dissect your TED Talk apart anyway. I want to ask you about a couple of things you said, and I want you to give it to me, just coach me up on it. Water in a bucket and time management.
Yeah. Well, for starters, let's begin with value.
Okay.
And this takes that out of the TEDx talk.
By the way, we're going to come to all three of those in a minute, but let's put it together. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah. So when we look and consider the value of water can have so many different meanings to us. It could have a situation that's positive because we're really thirsty, we want to drink it, or it becomes a part of a recipe we're creating, or it's something where we get to float our little boat on top of this millions of gallons of water, and it can have so many things, and that's beautiful. It can also be a torrent of water going through hurricanes and washing away and creating mudslides. So there's so many different dynamics that water can hold.
Yes.
And the reality is water is water. It's H2O. It doesn't care. Water does not care what we do with it. It just exists.
Okay.
And so it's not until we apply the value to the water as it is to us that we then we can purpose it and we utilize it and we either revere it or we reject it.
Well, okay, so now this is where you have to really coach me up on this a little bit. So water in a bucket, and then you also talked about water in a glass.
Yeah. Well,
tell me about that as well.
Glenn, have you heard of the glass half full, half empty, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, should I dare ask, which one do you prefer, the glass half full or the glass half empty? Before you answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you won't like my answer, so skip that.
So I'm going to interrupt right there. Before you even answer, let me ask the second half of the question.
Mm-hmm.
What difference does it really make? Because the reality is, if we were just to drink what's there, we would still be able to access the value we had with what's left, right? It doesn't matter if it's half empty or full. It's the quantity that's present. And it's our ability to make that decision. I am going to consciously enjoy what's in that glass. And that's where I always make fun, saying, you could just, whatever you really want to put into that glass, you just enjoy what's in there. And again,
because that's the choice.
Put in. Exactly.
So then I started looking at, okay, so the bucket, when it relates to time management, then that kind of confused me a little bit. You're saying if I look at a water in a bucket, I'm still going to make the choice of what that means?
Yeah.
So I can make the choice of what I can pick out to do for that day.
Exactly. You see, when we think back and where we have to go, and this leads into the belief part, but we know what we know at that very moment in time, and there is no changing that. The next moment, we may know a little bit more. And if we want to procrastinate and keep waiting to get more information, absolutely we can do that. But at every moment in time, we still only know what we know right then and there, and we can't change the past, right?
Right.
Even though I am a firm believer of time travel, so we'll see about that. But
yes, you are.
The past. That I still believe we can't change the past.
Okay.
So we can't change that past, which means that we can't change the past, and we also cannot live that future at the moment, right? Because it's still always just a little bit out of our way, out of reach every moment, like that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We can never quite reach it. So what does that leave us with? The present.
Right now.
Exactly, Glenn. Yeah. It leaves us with what we have right now, which means then that as we know what we know now, we do have the abilities to make those decisions, and we have made those decisions, right?
Yeah,
You've decided these amazing podcasts with the many TEDx speakers and TED talkers that you've had. I've been honored, and I got to have the choice to come onto this particular podcast because it was something I wanted to do. I'm so excited about it, right?
Yeah,
and what will come of it, we don't know.
But you made, so now that's where time management becomes an issue for a lot of folks. They're not aware of this one statement you have. You have the choice. You have the ability to prioritize based upon what is important to you.
And the second half is to be able to let go again, right? Because you made the choice of the law of physics, you can't have two things in one place at one time. It's impossible. So when you accept one choice, you're letting go of another one, and that's okay. And that's what many people forget. It's okay to let go of the other because you've made, based on what is important to you, the value, you made that decision. It's an easier.
Little confused.
Uh-oh. Then I need to learn to explain it better. What's still confused?
Well, part of it is because of your belief that by trusting in your decisions, you can live with your life. So when we are building out our time management schedule, you're saying we have to trust in our decisions that is right. The confusion is that's really hard to do as a leader.
It is hard.
How do you coach me out of that?
Well, so can I ask you a couple questions, Glenn?
Sure. Yeah.
Is the difficulty that you're seeing for the prioritization, does it come from a difficulty of attaching the value to it, or trusting the value that you have addressed to it?
Trusting the value that I have assigned. Well, trusting that it's the right decision.
Okay. And when we're looking at trust, there's that confidence level. As we look at, well, what else could we have done? We could do something else versus the choice we made, but we have to have at some point that ability for us to say, well, I did make this choice. Now here's the thing, and this might help you out a little bit. If we've made a choice to go one path, and this is where my high school counselor gave me that story. Dear Mr. Henry, I so love Mr. Henry. Big guy, When he was in the room, you knew he was there. And he always had these jovial eyes and laughing, and he jiggled when he laughed and such. And it was a time I was a senior in high school. I had two choices to make in which university I was going to attend. And I know being able to go to the university is a huge honor anyway, and it's fortunate. And I was in a dilemma. Do I go to Colorado State University across the mountain range, away from mom and dad, the only one of my family in that state, to some who knows what unknown? Or do I go to University of California, Davis, where it's much closer, I have family nearby, it's in the same state, but it's not what I really was looking for. Mm-hmm. So I had to make that decision. It was a morning of, I had to send that little, when we weren't dealing with emails and the digital virtual world, but I had the little card with the little stamp, and there was a box that we had to do the check. Yes, I am coming. No, I am not. Sign away. And I had both cards. And which one do I send? And which one do I just let go, right? So I went to Mr. Henry and I said, Mr. Henry, what do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do. This is the life-changing decision. Who am I going to meet? Blah, 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 blah. Well, his answer to me was very simple. He said, Ingrid, it doesn't matter which path you choose. The fact is, whichever one you choose, you have to accept you can never go back and go the other way. You go with that route. And he's right. So once I chose to go through to Colorado State, it's the path and the journey that created for me. Those are the rivulets that opened up. And everything that happened at that point in time allowed me to have a new experience. Now, let's say that I wanted to go back and not back. Let's say I wanted to change my course and return to University of California, Davis.
Okay.
Well, in that case, it's not that I can't go. The question becomes, how do I change my trajectory to get back to something that I now feel is more appropriate for me?
Okay.
Does that help?
Well, it brings up another question. So I'm going to move it to the business frame.
Mm-hmm.
Planning on hiring a subcontractor or contractor to do some work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have all the information yet, but I need to make a choice.
Right.
What do I need to do to feel that choice, I can trust that choice, and I can move on?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So these are hard decisions when you have something, there are different options and what's the best choice right now. What I usually recommend is, it's called the stop phase. So it's from a cycle phase that I utilize and work with my clients. Stop, step back, and grow. On the stop phase, that's when you actually write it down. What are all the resources that you have as it pertains to this particular scenario? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What are the factors that you can give over and hand over and get rid of on your plate and hand over to the subcontractor? What are perhaps the credentials you have heard from the subcontractor? What's the chemistry between you and the subcontractor? And you lay that all out. If in your gut or logic, it seems, yes, this is the choice to make, then go with that. If you're still not 100% sure, then always there can be those little addendums. I will move forward with the subcontractor, but A, B, C, D, so that we can be on a probationary period, and then we can see what the results are. So that way you're in, but not all in, and you have an escape route if you need to.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Well, I hope it helps. We'll find out. Don't know if we're getting any questions yet, but we'll find out when the questions start to come up to see if anybody else has a question about that.
Either that, or as a very, very special friend told me one time, take a quarter, flip it. If it's tails and you feel your gut's missing on it, then at that point,
you move on, you let it go. And yeah, I think
the person who originated that, for me anyway, simply said, trust your gut. Is
Yeah,
what it comes down to.
it
Trust
is.
your gut.
Yeah. And
So,
you see, you just said the word trust, right?
yeah,
Belief.
yeah,
And that's the third
absolutely.
quadrant. It's belief and trust. Because you can't change the past. You can change your trajectory to influence the future.
Okay, yes, you can change, because that decision and make that decision right will change. To make that decision right will change the future based upon what that decision is. Okay, see, so I think that helps, but now let me even drill it down a bit further.
Ooh.
I'm laying out my time management situation. I'm laying out, let's just say, my weekly schedule. These are my priorities. I may have 7 priorities, but I know I need to have my top 3 priorities. Coach me on how to use your system. By the way, if people are interested in really getting you and letting you coach them, the email address I have up on the screen, is that the best way to do it, or is it better for them to do it on LinkedIn? I don't have an email address. I have your website.
Yeah, that's my website.
Yeah.
You're absolutely welcome to reach out to me at ingridpyka.com. I'm happy to help you move through some of these struggles that are very common with everyone.
Okay.
So the first thing that I always teach about time management is, first of all, understanding, again, what is important, what are the things that you have. Go through that stop phase. What do you need to get done? What's the most important? And then we can start creating the sizes of each task that it will take. For example, if you are knowing that every day you want to contact 10 clients, and whether it be through email or you're reaching out to do your happy birthdays or congratulations or just catching up, and you're going to dedicate an hour on that every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just making it up, whatever works for you. Then you'll schedule that, and that is considered, it's kind of holy. It's your concrete. It's a timely block that will not change. Every Monday at 8 a.m., every Tuesday at 8 a.m., every Thursday at 8 a.m. That is what you are contributing to that block of time each week.
Okay.
So get the things that cannot change. Now, if there are some things that might be a little bit flexible, for example, you need to create a proposal and you don't know if it's going to take you an hour or 2 hours or a day, or even in some cases, when you've got these big ones, it can take months to create an accurate proposal. When you have the estimated time, then you can allot that accordingly. So let's look at this example of something that may take months to do. Should you block a 40-hour week for 3 months just for this particular proposal?
If you don't need any sleep, yeah.
Well, true. We'll get into that in a little bit. Good job, Glenn.
Yeah.
But the other reality is, during those 3 months, you still need to sleep. Yes. You also need to pay bills. You need to do other contacts, and you need to get
run your company, everything. Yeah.
Right. So the reality is you can't do everything together. This comes back to the professor that many of you have already heard this story. The professor, he stands in front of the lecture hall and he's wanting to teach his students the value of time and chunking projects, right? So he has this glass jar and he fills it with sand, and then he adds in the pebbles, and finally he tries to force those larger pieces of rock, and lo and behold, he cannot close the jar. So he starts anew, has the same amount of sand, gravel, and the rocks. This time, he starts with the rocks. He pours the rocks, clunk, clunk, clunk. He adds the gravel, trickle, 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 and trickle, trickle, trickle. Those gravel is filling in between the spaces. He finishes with the sand as it sifts all the way through, and he's able to seal the jar. The moral of the story is,
start with the big rocks.
Exactly. However, I take this one step further. I think the story is only hitting the pieces part of the way. In the example I just provided, if you are putting a huge project and you're knocking everything aside, you will never get your little things done, and they start building and building and building. And that's when people start feeling overwhelmed. The solution then, put in the rock of a certain size. You're cognizant of how much that size is. right? And then there's the Pomodoro technique where you do 25 minutes and then 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute breaks. And then after 4 of those, you take a 20-minute break. So whatever that works for you, you put a larger rock in the jar, and that's your bigger chunked tasks. And it may be something you don't want to do, something that's going to take a little more time or research or other resources. You then allow a little bit of time to add a little sand here and there. Take that 2-minute walk. Make that phone call to congratulate someone for a job well done. Set aside 10 minutes to write the bill that came last week.
Or last month.
And then, exactly. Well, in this case, it won't. But then you place another rock in. You fill it with a little more gravel, because in reality, when you look at these pieces and you have the rock and you do the intermittent rock, sand, gravel, rock, you will fill the holes much, much more. Now, the purpose is not to pack our 24-hour day completely, right? That's not the purpose. Yet, if we have allocated the sand piece, the kernel, or the gravel with other pieces that have different priorities in our lives, we can build a stronger foundation that will be more sustainable, complete our work-life balance, and allow us to wear those many hats in a long-term viable way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because what we're saying is that after you have kind of tracked through these things, you looked at everything that you consider to be a high priority, and you just decide what you're going to focus on, but it's just one rock in at a time, one focus item in at a time.
Right.
And then see where you are for everything else, add everything, and make the right decisions, but take care of one thing. Yeah. And maybe you don't spend the 4 hours on it the first day. Maybe you only spend 2 hours on it.
Right.
Because you have 6 weeks to get it done.
Right. So, and
as
long as you plan it out on a regular all-way basis. So I'll always suggest mornings and evenings, review your day, review the following day, and review the week. And then routinely review your entire month and your quarter and your annual goals. That way, you're not up to the last minute. Oh, I totally forgot. I got to get this proposal done. And it's the day before where you have to do that. Right. Students, does this sound familiar?
Yes,
it does. They do. Oh, no.
Yeah. And forgive me as I turn away from the camera for a quick second here. But I want to also ask you, I'm reaching all over everything to get something done. All right. So this is the power of live broadcast. Before we lose everything, let's get this done real fast. Just a second. Lean out of the camera view, put the leaves in front of my face, and okay, we should be okay now.
There you are. There you are.
I'm back. So I wanted to ask you, and I lost the train of thought trying to take care of that emergency power situation before it went out. But I wanted to ask you about this ideal of how you validated your research. You validated a lot of research. You did something interesting, but I want to ask you about one thing that you did, that you talked about in the TEDx, but I know you did a lot more. But you had 3 questions you used to validate the research.
Yeah, I did.
Let's talk about all 3 questions.
Yeah. So when I asked, or I created the questions, I wanted to know more about time. What is time? How does it relate? And having grown up in a family that was always asking questions and having long-term discussions, breakfast that lasted for 3-4 hours on weekends, just because we were talking, I was kind of ingrained. Okay, I need to ask and have an opportunity to listen. But I also knew from a scientific perspective that if I varied things too much, that I couldn't, there were too many variables.
Right.
So the questions I asked were, they were open-ended, which does create more creativity and thought process and breaking and dataing it together. And they were also asked in the same order and in the same verbiage. And so it was so exciting to see the expressions of people as they were being asked these questions.
Right.
And how they responded, because I would begin with the first one being, what does time mean to you? And they're just like, what?
Yeah, well,
this is a little more in depth.
I found that one kind of stopping me for a second and saying, and even now, about my answer this morning and yesterday is different than what it is right now. But then how did that help validate your work? I want to get to question number 2 because that was the stunner, I think. But how did that, tell me some of the answers you got there, and how did that validate this idea of time management and how it really fits in people's lives? I mean, you can read all these books you want about time management, but you
Right.
did it where it says it really fits because of this. So tell us how that, some answers and how that fit in.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where it was the beauty of that, because as I started gathering the responses, I was realizing that all of them almost were funneling into the same sense.
Basket, yeah.
I really was thinking as I started it that I would be getting responses such as, well, minutes, hours, days, the increments of time. And what instead came through was just that culmination of people understanding the value. And that's where it came back to the value. So things such as opportunities, losses, something that could be bought but not sold, things that were meaningful to people. It was cycles into some people or more succinct in others. And it all really culminated to the value. What is the value that people are attributing to time and to that now and through their past and even to their future? That's where then that example of the water came about, because it became very evident that some people felt time was wonderful. Some people felt it was very saddening, depressing. Others people, it was just a huge asset that could be gained, not lost. And yeah.
Yeah, I noticed though, this is what made me think about it through your TEDx was this idea of how I value time.
Mm-hmm.
And then do I value the past more than I value the present? Or do I value the future, what's coming, more than I value the present? And that seems, as I started to pull it apart from my own self, that started dictating a little bit more what I was doing as far as my priorities of the day were. Trying to recover for something I did in the past, trying to stay 100% focused, or looking at what my company should be doing 100 years from now.
Yeah.
So that really shaped it. And I think that's what makes your coaching kind of valuable for people, because they can tell you what the value is.
Thank you. Thank you. It's something that I was surprised with the responses, and it is something I have found that as my participants have gone through the 3-question time survey, they do think and assess their lives a little bit different just with these 3 simple questions, which is really pretty cool.
I want to talk to you about the second question. Now, I want you to tell us a question that was kind of the fake question.
Yes.
And then the real question that you use. So, but tell us, both of us, but we'll spend our time on the real question, but a little bit about that fake question.
So the question that I would gather the responses. And by the way, these were all either face-to-face, which was my personal favorite. I would do it through online surveys, even social media posts. So there was a myriad of ways or paper that people were responding to these. So this next question was one that I was able to do on a personal level. And then on the written form, I would start that and then say, respond forward. But what is the most frustrating thing about not having enough time? And what would you say, Glenn?
You know what? I don't know. I couldn't, again, when you first said that, I'm glad you switched it right away, because I still couldn't come up with an answer. Time is frustrating thing about time, not enough of it.
Exactly. Not getting things done, not enough. Yeah. And so I kind of predicted that was going to be the response, because I took the survey myself and that was my first response. And I'm like, well, that's going to be a boring response. They're all going to say that. And I'm not learning anything. We're not learning anything from that. So I switched it around and dove a little deeper. What are the 2 most frustrating things about not having enough time? And that now really dug deep into my participants and into those that are engaging in this process. What is so hard about it? Why am I upset? And those have been really eye-opening, very eye-opening.
When you look at that and you start to think, okay, why is this? I mean, why am I losing time? Why do I feel that way? That had to really help shape your program. Yeah. What type of answers were you getting?
Oh, I was getting things. One of them was like, now it's my own fault. And then I would get these other responses of disappointing, hard to dang it, not living life the way I want to. That's scary.
That is scary.
That's really scary.
Yet, though, when we go back to the idea of your belief and saying, okay, I made that decision, I'm going to make that decision work, I believe it's right, then does that help people with that? I'm sure if they're on the last legs of life, that doesn't help, but people you're coaching, pointing that out. Okay, well, make that decision and make it the best decision.
Right. And that's where it's so important to let go of the guilt, let go of I wish I could, because when you're so direct and your mind is focused on the other instead of, I can get this done now. This is my now. It's like the multitasking fallacy, right?
Yes.
We really can't multitask. I ask you to think of a green apple. You got a green apple in your mind?
Sure.
Okay, now I ask you to think of a yellow peach. The green apple is gone.
Exactly.
You can't think of both at the same time. And as we're going through our normal days, and as we're creating our tasks, and as we're in the process of working or going somewhere or whatever, spending time with the family, with a client, with our own selves, when our mind is busy elsewhere, we're not here and now, and our here and now is not the same.
How do we stay, well, okay, that's a whole nother talk, I believe, but staying focused in the now, and not worried about the past, the future, or what you've missed out on, releasing the guilt.
Right.
That has to be a lot of work, would you say?
It does take a little bit of practice.
Oh, that's interesting. A little bit of practice.
Yes, it does take practice, and then it is more of it is a confidence builder. I will say that. It is bolstered by the essence of what you're accomplishing as a result of everything that you do as you are focusing on this one moment becomes much more impactful, much more fulfilling for those around you, as well as for yourself. And you actually get things done. That's the ultimate, which then opens you up for more possibilities, right?
Yes, feels like it increases your focus into the moment.
Yeah. And you feel much more relieved, because when you focus on the moment and you've organized your thoughts for later, or you've organized your time and your block and your schedule for later, you know that what you gave up now still will be there to get done later, and with your undivided 100% attention.
Okay. I want to be careful about our time, but I want to make sure we get a few things covered. And I have a few more questions, so I have to prioritize my time and say which ones am I going to ask you. But I do want to know what number 3 is.
Number 3, and this is where I saw an incredible shift instantly. Whereas before we were talking about the limitations of time, which seemed to completely annihilate our thought of value. In this third question, it was a simple ask of, what is one word to describe having enough time to do anything you want?
How much did the word freedom come up?
A lot.
I would think so.
Yeah. And just even looking at your expression, there's a relief, freedom, love, abilities, treasure. Everything was from that frustrated, loose, and beautiful. And it was utopic. It was unbelievable, the shift that I saw. And I had not anticipated that whatsoever. In fact, I do remember when I did the survey myself, for me, the answer was also like, freedom. And just the weightlessness that occurred at that very moment was so uplifting and motivational and inspiring.
Right.
And that's what we get to live in, because remember the word I used. I didn't say having more time. I said having enough time to do the things you want to do. Enough is all it takes.
Okay, so enough is all it takes. And like I talk about sometimes, we will expand to whatever enough is for us. Even so, if we say we need 60 minutes, it could be done in 30. We'll expand to that because we decided 60 minutes is enough instead of the 30. So I think, though, the challenge here is it may be motivational, but I don't believe I can get the freedom.
What is the resistance? Why do you not believe you can?
Always, especially running your own business, especially running your own household, especially running everything. Always have something new. You always have another big rock to add in. And if it's not just big rock, you have a bunch of emergencies coming up or a bunch. Listen about that homekeeper. Okay, want to keep the house clean, want to keep food in the refrigerator, and want to have good entertainment or whatever that may be. But in the meantime, still got to go out and cut the grass, got to go get the kitty litter, all these other things with sand get in the way. So you will never completely achieve freedom unless you become filthy rich. And then on that hand, so you got to coach us on this. Coach us all on this.
So that's where we have to switch our mindset.
Okay.
Of what is enough and what is the goal. When we set our goals, it's a benchmark. And in a business sense, it may be how many clients, what's your revenue, what's your profit share, how many hours do you work? Those are things that would be a very succinct benchmark. Now, when we switch to our personal lives, we can also apply that in that manner too. I get to have so many hours exercising. I get to have this many minutes with family time, downtime. And that is, again, it goes back to the prioritization. As you prioritize, you are allowing what will interfere or not. I can interject another part of time management in a moment, but I want to just reiterate one thing here on this point.
Sure.
Using as an example, family dinner time, right?
Okay. Yeah.
How many families at this point say 7 p.m. every Friday night, that is family time? The phones are turned off. We are not going to be watching TV or we are watching a movie, whichever. So if we design that is the policy, that's what's going to happen. We're all in agreement. Then no force of nature can move that. It's a rock solid boulder mountain that is set fast.
I think I'm with you now. Okay.
Value that decision. You've chosen that this is the right thing to do, and you believe and have confidence that boulder will stay put.
Yeah, because you can look at the present, the benefits you get from the present, and the benefits you get in the future. Absolutely.
And that can be time management. That can also take place in the business. We cannot be in one place, in more than one place at one point in time. And we get things done. And believe it or not, people, when they come and throw emergencies on us, that's their emergency or urgency. It's not our emergency. And most of the time, it's going to be okay. Truly, most of the time, if we do not address what someone else wants us to do immediately, it's okay. We just share with them the new expectation. Either you turn your phone off, you don't check your emails, okay? And then when you get to it, then you respond accordingly and build up their expectation. But this is the thing that I wanted to bring up.
Okay. Can I pause you for a minute? Because we just got a question. Jeff wants to know, what if the emergency or urgency is from your boss?
So this is a question that I do get frequently. And it's a great question, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us and hopping in. So the question then was, what if the boss is giving you the emergency on top of that?
Yeah, he's the one that says, here's the emergency. Get this done.
Okay. So here's the thing. What communication do you have in advance with your boss? What are the expectations that the boss has? Because he has to realize that whatever he's throwing onto your plate will take the place of something else you are working on. So the best way to do this would be saying, Mr. Boss or Ms. Boss, this is important. I understand that. Let's get this going. I just need to let you know while I'm working on this emergency,
Mm.
I will not be able to work on and complete the proposal. So the proposal, which I anticipated on having done at 5 today, will instead get done tomorrow, which means that the staff meeting we have scheduled for 8 a.m., I likely will not be able to attend unless you are okay with me extending this proposal until noon. Now it's the boss's decision. How does that sound?
Let's give him a moment to get back to us. So he's going to try. He's going to try that because
Awesome.
I believe most people can try that once they become aware of their priorities.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a
So-
factor of communicating. That is such a huge part of it. And laying out what your expectations are. That was a great question. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. That was a great question.
So let's go ahead and go to your next part. I'm sure I took you off track there a little bit, but you said you wanted to add
No.
another
It actually was exemplifying exactly the point I was going to make. So
Okay.
I say that there are timely and transferable time blocks. The timely ones are things that are set in stone. You can't move it. There's a good, nice little chunk and it won't roll out of place. When you have the timely appointment, you and everyone else around you know that that cannot be changed. Back to the example we gave before. 8 a.m. every Tuesday, you're on the phone or you're connecting with your previous clients. Staff meetings every Thursday at 11 a.m. or every first Tuesday. You know, those are set times. They will not change. They cannot change because of the value you have placed on that activity. Now, there are other activities that maybe due to prioritization may not be quite as concrete, and they can be shifted from one moment to another in this block of your scheduler. So if you say in this example that we just talked with Jeff about, the boss provided an emergency that needed to get done. Now, Jeff was not able to finish the proposal, which means he's going to transfer that proposal to another slot in his schedule.
Right.
In which
Okay.
case, no two things can be in one place, then something else needs to be taken out. So I'm always working with my clients and making sure as your schedule is laid out, you're not filling it with things that are rock, sand, rock, gravel, sand, all the way packed full that you are so jam-packed the entire week, there is no flex time to adjust and accommodate. There need to be gaps to take care of little emergencies and to catch up and to cushion. There has to be that.
Yeah,
incorporated.
absolutely has to be that. I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
We're going to change channels on you here just a little bit. I'd like to know, what did this do for you? Given this TEDx talk, what did it do for you, either personally or professionally? When you gave that talk, when you finished, how did it affect you?
It was incredible. I'll say it was one of those, I wanted to do something that was impactful, and for me to have accomplished it, not just once, but twice, was incredible. As a personal accomplishment, it allowed me to say, yay, look at the responses that I was getting from the audience members. And I'm still in connection with some of them. That this was years ago from my first one, and they're still connecting with me. And when there's a comment, they're like, oh yes, Ingrid, that was such a difference. That feeling, I don't think there's nothing to replace that.
Okay.
As a business and as a speaker, for those of you that are looking at it from that perspective, absolutely take any opportunity you can to become one of these featured speakers, TEDx, and especially even in your communities, because it does provide a certain amount of credibility and recognition and that visibility when you're on the internet and people around the globe are making comments and liking it. I think that's pretty cool.
Makes a big difference. I have a
well, you experienced it, Glenn, too, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. Yeah. I've experienced it, and all except for last year, but I've experienced this. We're all in that same shape, 2020, but that's okay.
Oh, we evolve.
Question I want to ask you is, what are you doing right now to help people? How are you
right now? I'm on this amazing podcast with you, Glenn.
Okay, so what are you doing for you? Now, I guess I want to kind of break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
You give keynote addresses.
I do. I
I'm
do.
going to assume people can book those through your website. Am I
I
wrong?
would be honored. I would love. I'm always open to how I can impact other groups. I love speaking in front of audiences and providing that. And what I really especially enjoy is customizing it for the particular audiences that are out there, because there are so many nuances that can take place. And if we just have a flat box, it's not going to fit in that circle or even the ovide look. So it's the customization that becomes so powerful. And yeah, so I love doing the keynotes. I love working with business teams and the entrepreneurs, whether it's a startup or they're in change management, and how do we expand the resources, the improved profit centers. How do we get a team to communicate better? Those are all wonderful ways that I love helping.
So those all could be keynote subjects, or are those some of those coaching subjects?
Yeah, but all of the above, actually. So I know they say don't niche, but the niche in this case is as a company, we have a service we want to provide, right? We want to impact and provide that in a way that people will come back and that they will talk about us in a positive light. And that comes into place when the business owner, the business team are all on the same page. The communications, the trainings, the systems are all in place so that it becomes a 5-star experience for the owner, for the team or the service provider, and the client and end user. That those 4 quadrants, because the client is not always the end user, so that's why I kind of split those into another one, that each one of those has the opportunity to communicate and understand what's the vision to reach that mission statement.
Cool. Like that a lot. I want you to tell us about I can, I will, I am.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can, I will, I am. The Secrets to a Guilt-Free Life is my newest book and the self-help guide. It is going to be out right now. We're setting it for November 16th of 2021. We're anticipating a wonderful book signing release. It'll be a unique experience. And so for all of you that are watching this before that time, I welcome you. Reach out to me. I'd love to send you an invite and how we can help support what you're working on. And if you've watching this after that date, then absolutely it is available on my website, ingridpyka.com/solutions.
Okay, so just add the solutions to the back of that email address. I'm sorry, I keep on calling it email address. Your website, so just /solutions, be really powerful, really powerful. And there, by the way, is your LinkedIn link. There it is, so that you can have that, so people can go there. That's how I think I made contact with you, through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful thing. I can, I will, I am. When that does come out, will you come back?
Absolutely. I would love to. Thank you. My pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, here's my last question for you. Okay, she goes, finally, thank goodness. No,
this is awesome. This is fun. I love your questions. You are really, Glenn, this is probably one of the best interviews I have had, because you're challenging, you're knitting in, you're really making it apply. And so huge kudos for that. I really enjoy this experience. I hope those of you that are watching and listening are also enjoying it just as much.
What I've discovered is that after we finish these, it's the comments that I get that help me frame my questions a little bit. And so this next question is a tough one, because a lot of people want to know. They say, well, you should have asked this, you should have asked that. So here's my question to you. What question should I have asked you that I did not ask you? What question should I have asked you that I did not ask you?
I think the best question that I would have loved to have known is, how can we support people around us the most?
Wait a minute. How can you support people around us the most? Okay. I'm asking, can we support people around us the most? In our time management skills, right?
Well, I think it goes across the board in many ways. And now that I asked the question, I have to come up with the answer. And I think my simple way, it's a simple one word: listen. Listen, so that we can learn and better ourselves and be a better person for everyone around us.
That is a great way to support Listen Better.
Mm-hmm.
Listen better, listen more. Dr. Ingrid Pyka, thank you so much for spending the time, taking the time to work
My
with
pleasure.
us. I definitely enjoyed it, and I will get you back when it gets your book comes out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Glenn. To all of you that are out there, you got this.
Thank you for connecting with us here at Touchstone Publishers. Please join our group Essential Leadership Skills and share your leadership knowledge with us all.